Your client is never more excited to work with you than in the moment that they give you your credit card. And most coaches, they let that excitement leak for 2 weeks straight, and we're wondering why the client ghosts. This is Build with CEO, where we turn your coaching into a real business. My name is Trevor, the CEO of Coach Catalyst, and I'm excited about today's topic. We're talking all about onboarding. Now, I'm going to take what I teach over the course of hours, and we're going to take some components of it today and teach it in 20 minutes, give you the spark notes on onboarding, because most coaches who have a retention issue, it isn't necessarily always a product or a service. It's many times how we onboarded those clients. And so we typically look at the onboarding process first. And if we can fix that, retention improves. Now, with onboarding, it starts at the moment of the transaction. So we spend all this time and all this effort trying to get someone into our business, right? And so engineering the first 14 days of that client's experience with us is arguably one of the most important pieces of our business. Because if we onboard someone well, they have a great first impression, that is going to set the tone for the rest of the relationship with that client. And it will massively improve retention. Trust me on this. And there's actually data to back this up. And so it is worth your time as a coach to spend time on the onboarding process. And I'm going to give you some of the major keys to onboarding in today's episode. Now, we have to think about the psychology of the client the moment that they buy. Most coaches aren't selling a $19 widget, right? They're selling something of substantial value, right? It might be a few $100s a month, it might be a few $1,000s, right? But they're selling something of substantial value. And this just isn't easy transaction. I'm at the gas station and I'm buying a candy bar and I'm swiping my credit card, right? This is something that someone has to think about, and it could very well change the trajectory of their life. And so there's going to be emotions that are present in this transaction that, as a coach, as an engineer of the experience that you want, we have to be aware of. And there's three major emotions here, two of them being negative and one of them being positive. And these should guide every stage of the onboarding. And everything we add to the onboarding should be looking at, am I amplifying the positive emotion? And am I finding ways to negate the negative emotions? Or am I finding ways to counteract those negative emotions? So here are the three emotions that are coming in. The first one is buyer's remorse. Every transaction we make of any substantial value, a little piece of our brain is going to be like, was that a good decision? Right? Did I make a good decision? Whether or not the client shows it or not, there is that piece of their brain asking them, was this a good decision? So that's negative emotion number one. It's our buyer's remorse. Negative emotion number two. Now, this one is a little bit more specific to coaching. You likely are not the first coach that this client has hired. They have maybe hired a personal trainer, or they've hired a health coach, or they've tried to get coaching from somewhere else, but you're likely not the first person that this person has hired as a coach. Now, they wouldn't be hiring you as a coach if they were really, really successful with those other coaches. So there's a piece of that client's brain that's thinking about, am I actually going to be successful this time? I haven't been successful with things like this in the past. Why is this different? So that's negative emotion number two. Now, the positive emotion, our third emotion that's inside of this transaction, is excitement. They gave you their credit card, right? They bought what you were selling, right? They believe in you enough as a coach to give you their credit card and to trust you with the process. That is huge, right? And we don't want to take that lightly as coaches, right? That should be a little bit of weight on our shoulders. They are trusting you with their transformation. And that trust is their credit card. But if they didn't trust you, they wouldn't have given you their credit card. They wouldn't have bought your service. Okay, so they are excited. There is belief that you can help them achieve the thing you talked about inside of your marketing, the thing you talked about on the call with them. They believe that you can help them achieve that. Cool. That's awesome. And we need to amplify that belief as much as humanly possible within the first 14 days, arguably within the first 5 days. And I'm going to give you some ideas on how you can do that. Now, onboarding, most coaches with onboarding are like, new client signs up, gives them their credit card. Awesome, cool. We're going to start our program on Monday or Thursday or whenever we're going to start the program. Cool. Awesome. And then they send the client away. Maybe the next step, maybe they send him an email with like 15,000 things for them to do, every form and waiver to fill out, and the clients don't do it. Right. What happens when you get an email with 50,000 things to do? You don't do it because it just feels overwhelming. They may be quick and easy, right? And you still may be excited, but you also have a life, and the dog might have just thrown up on the carpet, and you got to pick the kids up from sports, right? Like life is going on. And so as a coach, we have to be thinking about this client's life. They're not rearranging their entire life to work with you as a coach. You're fitting into what they're already doing, and you're maybe in addition to all of these other things that they have going on. So we just have to be cognizant of that. And so us dropping an email with, hey, super excited to get started with you. Here's 15,000 things I need you to do. It's not really a great way to start that relationship, right? We want them to get wins, mini micro wins from the start. And this starts immediately after the transaction. There's a gap after the transaction from when they give you your credit card and when they start your program. And the bigger that gap is, the more time it gives those negative emotions, buyer's remorse, and will this work for me this time? It gives those emotions time to grow. And if those emotions get time to grow, they're going to start to overtake the other emotion of excitement. I'm excited right now, right? Give me the keys to the car. If you can sell fitness, if you can sell transformation, you can sell absolutely anything because you're selling something that's going to be given to them in time. It's not given to them right now, right? Right now, they're getting the belief that they'll get that thing, right? But we're not actually giving that thing to them for a few months, maybe for a few years. And you know what? It's going to take a whole lot of hard work in order to get there, right? It's kind of a hard thing to sell, right? But you did it, right? You sold it. You have them. Now we need to ensure that it is an incredible experience right from day one. And it shouldn't rely on you to do everything. So there is going to be some planning. I'm going to give you the outline on how things roll today. And then you're going to need to go out there and dig in and start building this thing. So from day zero, immediately after the transaction, we want to be putting that client on a program. So they are starting to get content from us immediately from day zero. So as close to that transaction as possible, we want to be putting them on their program. Okay? And this is likely a program in Coach Catalyst. Use it. It's the easiest platform to do this type of stuff. So you put them on the program. You have a program called onboarding. It's as long as you want it to be 5 days, 7 days, 14 days, whatever you want it to be. You can layer different programs on top of it. So if you want it to be a little bit longer, you can. But in that transaction, they're going to give you their credit card or they're going to purchase, right? We immediately want to put them on that program. Okay. And day zero of that program or day one of that program, the thing they're going to open, right? They're going to get an invitation to your coaching platform, which is like an invitation to the VIP section, right? They're going to get an invitation. They're going to download the app. They're going to get in. And the last thing we want is them to open up the app and nothing is there, right? Nothing is there. They just open it up. It's like, interesting. They click around. Oh, cool. Here's messages. Here's communities. Here's these things. They're clicking around. They're not necessarily finding anything, right? So that's why we want to add the program right away. So that program gets added to them immediately when you are creating that new client in your system. Okay. So now when they open the app, they have this program that you've created, that you've crafted, that you've engineered to have the perfect experience for every client every single time, even if you have a staff of 10. It all gets delivered the exact same way and the client gets the exact same experience. And then we can build on that experience and make it better. We're engineering it. Right? I really like that term with this. We're engineering this experience. So on day zero, they're going to open up their app. And you know what? It's going to be a lesson with a video from you. This is extremely important. You want it to be a video from you. If your coaching practice is more virtual and less offline, video is even more important, but I would argue this is important even for your offline. If you're an in-person personal trainer, if you're a brick and mortar gym, if you're a hybrid coach, if you're an online coach, we want a video on day one. Why? Video builds better relationships than just text, even if you sent them a text. You want them to see you. You want them to hear you. You want them to watch your mannerisms. You want them to feel like they know you. And the fastest way to do that outside of face to face time together is video. And you craft that video. Doesn't need to be perfect, doesn't need to be polished, doesn't need to be completely scripted and like this professional studio thing. It needs to be you, right? And it's really simple. It's like, hey, what's up? This is Trevor. I'm super excited for you to be part of our program. Over the next 12 weeks, you can expect X, Y, and Z. We're super excited for you to be here. We know technology and things like that can be a little bit overwhelming. So we're going to spend the first 3, 4, 5, however long your program is, or however long your onboarding is, days to really get you familiar with how we coach. And if you can get familiar with that, it's going to lower your anxiety a little bit and allow us to provide an incredible experience for you. And it all starts here on day 0. Now, over the course of the next 5 days, I'm going to give you just kind of little things to do, no more than 1 or 2 things a day, really simple, can be completed in 5 minutes or less, right? And that's going to get this coaching foundation built so that you can have incredible success. So you know what? What I need you to do today is down below this video on the home screen is a form I need you to fill out. That's our intake form. And that's going to allow us to get to know you a little bit better so that we can provide the most personalized coaching experience possible. So today, I need you to take 5 minutes out of your day and I need you to fill out that form. If you do have any questions along the way, just hit the little message button that comes in right to me, and I'm going to be able to take care of you right through there. That's our little portal between you and I. Cool. All right. We'll see you here tomorrow. Right? Something really simple. I just made that up. I'm not reading a script or doing anything like that. I just made that. I just made that up on the fly, right? Really honest, right? Really personable, like you're talking to the client in person, right? But because we're doing it in video form and we're building it into a program that gets automatically delivered, is you, your coach, your team, everyone can deliver it the exact same way. And we can engineer this experience. So day 0, they're opening the app, they're getting a video from you. And one more thing that I just want to mention is on that call, when they end up purchasing, right? You're super excited and you're going to tell them the next step. Once we get off this call, or maybe even while you're on the call, right? If it is something like this that's a little bit more that's virtual, right? On Zoom or things like that, you could actually be building it and setting it up right after that purchase. Right? Or if you're using something like Growth Catalyst, you can have it all automated within the system, right? Where they make the purchase and boom, all of this happens without you having to touch anything. So they could get added to the app right while you're on the call. That's kind of a cool experience, right? And you can make sure that they get it set up, ready to rock and roll. We're basically shrinking the gap where buyer's remorse, right? And will this work for me? We're eliminating those emotions right from the beginning because we're taking action. We're getting started, which is going to amplify the excitement. Okay, so that's day 0. That's what we want to do on that first day. When you're building your onboarding, right? There isn't like a perfect science to this. There is an art to this. But how I like to guide coaches through this process is step 1 is thinking about all the things that you need to collect or learn about a client in order to coach them really, really well. Right? What does the client need to know in order for them to be a great client? What questions do clients ask you on a repeated basis that we could get out of the way early? That's really what the onboarding is all about. And you're going to answer it in video form like this. Then you're also going to transcribe that video, maybe have AI go through and rewrite it and clean it up a little bit, make it a little bit better for a written format. And you're going to paste that below the video. So now you're helping all the different learning types. Some people like to watch, some people like to read, and you can just make it really easy for them to get started. But there's a couple things. You want the daily tasks to take no more than 10 minutes. It should be closer to 5 minutes. We want this to be really easy for someone to take each day, and no more than 2 tasks per day, likely the 1 task a day. What's the one thing I need from you today? And I'll give you some examples here. Every coach is a little bit different. If you're watching this, you might be a macro coach, you might be a habit coach, you might be workouts, you might be hybrid, you might be all of the above. Health coach working with disease conditions, things like that. And so I can't give you an exact frame. I can't give you like exact layout, but I can give you the framework. I can give you the principles. And then you're going to put those principles together in a way that makes sense for your client journey. Okay. So, number one is, what kind of information do we need to collect from this client? Most coaches have like a waiver. They might have like a terms and conditions. You might have contracts as part of your business. You might have an intake form where you're learning about that person. Take a look at your intake form if you do have one. And if that sucker is like stupid long, it's like 30, like it takes someone 20 minutes to fill out, let's break it down and have them fill out portions each day. It's a little bit more manageable, right? And just the psychology behind it, like, you know what it's like if you fill out a form. The longer the form is, the worse the answers to the questions get. You just start checking boxes because it's like, I just want to get through this thing and get on to the next thing. But you can take that form and you can break it down and you can have different themes around it. One might be just basic information. Another one might be more nutrition orientated. Another one might be more like fitness or movement orientated. And then we break that up over the course of the first 7 days. Now, onboarding can be as long as you want, but how I like to look at onboarding is, what's the length of the relationship going to be with this client? And if the length of your relationship is 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, taking a week at the beginning to just make sure that this client has an incredible experience from day one is not a big ask. And the clients are actually going to get a better experience because we're not going to have to deal with any of the issues when we get into the actual like program, when we get into taking action and changing things. Because remember, like, this isn't that hard for us, right? You're a coach, right? You've maybe already made the transformation, right? You've already been successful at this. And now if we on day one ask the client to start the program, do all these things, clean out their kitchen, drink their water, eat their protein, get their workout in, learn this new technology, right? It's really overwhelming. And if we do that on day one, we shouldn't be surprised on why people are ghosting by the end of the first week, the end of the second week, or why our retention isn't very good, right? Because we didn't have a proper onboarding. We were super excited about the process. So we threw everything at the client, and then we felt like we did our job. And then it's the client's fault because they didn't execute. They didn't find the time. They didn't make the time. They didn't, get up earlier, or whatever excuse we want to make as a coach. But really, it's our failure in how we deliver the information. And there are tools available. Coach Catalyst is a great one to be able to deliver this information in a way that makes sense for people and that it fits into their life. And what this is going to do is it's going to reduce the anxiety in this first week of the program. And if we can reduce that anxiety, one, our learning is going to be better. Two, our adherence is going to be better. And if we can get adherence through the first week, now we've set the foundation to get adherence for the next 6 to 12 months. And the way we get adherence is making it stupid easy and stupid simple for them to get started. We want to lean on this excitement that they have early on. And then we want to make simple daily actions or tasks for them to do where they can get win after win after win, and they can stack those wins all the way through the onboarding. So on day 0, we've got the video from you. We maybe have one form for them to fill out. If you have a really long intake form, let's break it down. Let's break it down. Let's make it easier, right? Let's make it way easier. Every question on your form should inform your coaching process. I see too many coaches with forms that are 50 questions long, and half the questions don't even like inform how they would coach. Take your intake form, go through it with just like ruthless, I don't even know the right word. Like you just want to, like, every question should earn its right to be there. Everything should matter. And then once you've kind of minimized that a little bit, let's break it down into some themes and let's deliver it over the course of those 5 to 7 days. Now, the next thing after we get all the information collected, because you may be doing a lot of things. You may want them to do a food journal during those first 3 days. You may want them to take pictures. You may want them to, just basic intake form. You may want them to do like biometrics, like circumferences, things like that. But stick to the rule of one thing per day, maybe two if the second thing is pretty easy, but one thing per day, right? Don't just jam it all in, spread it out. And that's going to give you an idea on how long your onboarding is. Okay. So that's our collection, our intake. What do we need from that client? The next thing we want to do in our onboarding process is we want to set the rules of engagement, right? Every client that comes to you is going to have experiences with other coaches, both good and bad. There's going to be certain things their last coach really, really did well, and there's going to be certain things that really annoyed them about their last coach. They're going to bring all that to this coaching relationship. And those will be the expectations for this coaching relationship, the things that coach did well, unless you state otherwise. So you need to lay out the rules of engagement. Typically, rules around a few things. One is communication. How are we going to communicate inside of this relationship? What are the boundaries for communication? Right? We're not using personal cell phone numbers here, right? You should be using a professional medium like Coach Catalyst to communicate with your clients, right? What are the hours? How quickly do you get back to people, right? We need to set all of that up front, and you need to set it in a way where you can exceed it every single time. Okay. We want to under promise, over deliver every day of the week, right? We don't want to just say what we think the client wants us to hear. Hey, we're going to get back to you immediately as soon as we can on every single message you throw in, because you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to live to that standard every single day of the week, every month of the year for years on end. So you need to set your rules. What makes sense, right? We need to set the box, and then the client will understand, and they understand the expectations, they understand the rules, and now everyone we're not leaving anything up for frustration, because frustration is typically I expect one thing and you're doing something different. But if I don't know what the client's expectations are, or they don't know what expectations or rules I have for my business, then we're playing a game we don't even know we're playing. And so you have to set those rules. You have to set those rules around communication. We need to set the rules around the engagement. If you have daily habits, if you have daily tasks that you're going to ask of them, if you have weekly forms that you're going to have them fill out, right? What are your expectations for the client in order for them to get the absolute best results out of this process, right? The client needs to know what's expected of them. And then the other thing I like to add in here that I think a lot of coaches forget is, how are we going to approach this relationship when things go wrong? When I say things go wrong, like when the client isn't able to execute the way they want to, right? Is the client just going to disappear? What happens if the client does disappear for a period of time, right? What happens when life gets in the way? How are we going to right the ship? How are we going to get the train back on the tracks? Pick whatever analogy you want. But how are we going to get through that time? Because it will get messy. That's just part of the coaching process. How do we get through that and keep moving forward? Because as coaches, we know if we can just get a client to execute for a long enough period of time, they're going to see results. But the mistake that most people make is they don't execute long enough, or they don't execute at a high enough level for a long enough period of time. And that's your job as a coach, is to help them continue to take steps forward. Yes, they might take a step back or a couple steps back, but then they keep taking steps forward. So when we look at this over time, they've moved in the correct direction. And all of this stems from the onboarding. And most coaches just leave these things up to chance. They don't define the rules of engagement. They don't define the expectations right from the beginning. And then they don't communicate those expectations to the client. Right? If, as a client, I don't know what's expected of me of my coach, it's going to be hard for me to live up to them. Right. And as a coach, I should have the client, we should let the client know what the expectations are for them, what they can expect from you as their coach. Right. Now it's all out there. Right. Now we're setting the foundation for an incredible relationship. Coaching is built on trust. It is 100% built on trust. And trust is simply doing what you say you're going to do, right? Trust is setting the rules of engagement and living by those rules, right? Trust is communication, right? Trust is showing up. And when we build that trust, right, now we have clients for a really, 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 really long time. They do our main program and then they move into our continuity program, and then they're there for years. And much of that is built in these first 7 days. First impressions matter. And so it behooves you to spend some time on your onboarding and really start to dial in this process. Okay. Because you can then deliver it over and over and over again. It's going to free you up to do the human things. And I've done lots of episodes on onboarding. And so you can go grab some of the other ones if you need a little bit more of the specifics around it. But I like coaches to start with a piece of paper to start and just start mapping out what are all the things that you need from a client? What are the questions that you get all of the time? What are the things that clients are doing that's maybe annoying that you didn't really set the expectations up front? Right? What are the expectations around accountability? What are the expectations around communication? Right? That's going to get you thinking about how do I build this out? And then once we have all that down on paper, we start thinking about videos for each of them because we want video content as much as humanly possible throughout the onboarding because it builds the relationship with that client, right? We need face to face. If we can't get true in person, the next step down from that is video. The next step down from that is audio. The next step down from that is text. And if we're just relying on text, we're missing out on some relationship building, and we can get that through video. So we lay out those videos over the course of our onboarding. And then at the end of the onboarding, if we can swing it, one of the best experiences is then meet with that person in person, Zoom, live, seeing each other, because now we can answer any questions that came up during that onboarding. We can then set the plan for that client, even if it is kind of a scripted plan. We can set the foundation and really cement that foundation. They've been watching your videos over the last 7 days. They've been getting to know you, and now we need to get to know that client a little bit. And boom, now we're going to have that client for a really, really, really long time. So onboarding is worth the effort. And yes, it will take some effort. And we've got some really cool tools that we have at Coach Catalyst. They'll be in the description below. You can grab them. We have an onboarding GPT that helps you come up with some of this stuff, but it's going to take some time. You're going to have to sit down with some paper and you're going to build it out and then drop it into Coach Catalyst in your lessons, set the actions, set the forms, set all of that so that your clients, every client has an incredible experience from day zero. Remember, we want to be as close to the transaction as possible. So if you have any questions, definitely hit me up in the comments. If you're watching this on Facebook, then make sure you tag me, and I'd love to have this conversation. Onboarding is a really, really important thing to me. It's something that we continually try to improve on, both at Coach Catalyst and in our other businesses. And I hope it's something that you take seriously as well. Because when we get onboarding right, or we keep doing it better, our retention improves. And it's a whole lot easier to keep clients longer than it is to continually find new clients. My name is Trevor. This is Build with the CEO, and this is where we help coaches, great coaches, build real businesses. We'll see you here next week.